Why doesn't the US invade North Korea? We know that China would come to North Korea's defense if the US were to invade North Korea. But why doesn't China do the same for Russia? After all, they have a much closer relationship with Russia than they do with North Korea. Well, because it's in China, its interest to keep North Korea as a buffer state between them and South Korea, which is a staunch ally of the United States. If North Korea didn't exist, then China would have to face off against the might of the US military directly. And considering that China's military is no match for the US military, this would be a very bad situation for China. Not to mention that the US has 28,500 troops stationed in South Korea as we speak. So even without invading North Korea, the US has a significant military presence right on China's border. This keeps China in a constant state of paranoia, which is why they refuse to reduce their own military budget and why they always testing new weapons. But you might be thinking, what about Russia? Why doesn't China help Russia, who is also a close ally of theirs against Ukraine? Well, this is because Russia is much closer to Europe, whereas Ukraine is much closer to Asia. So from Beijing's perspective, Ukraine is a lot more distant and therefore not as threatening. Plus, Russia has been causing problems for China recently by buying a ton of their debt. And China has been trying to get away from being a dictatorship that relies on a personality cult to rule the country. So they don't really want to be too closely associated with Russia at the moment. You see, despite being a communist country themselves, China has been trying to distance itself from Russia because they want to appear more modern and less oppressive. And one way of doing this is by not acting like Russia and buying loads of their debt. Also, if China were to openly support Russia, this would anger the people of Taiwan, who'd see Ukraine as a beacon of freedom that the West has propped up to resist the tyranny of both China and Russia. In fact, there have been many protests in Taiwan against China's support of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And this is something that Beijing does not want to deal with right now, as they are already facing an economic slowdown, and the last thing they need is to upset the people of Taiwan. In conclusion, although North Korea and Russia are both authoritarian countries that share a border with China, only North Korea serves as a buffer state between China and the United States. This is why China supports North Korea but not Russia. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.